Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. Here again to remind you that this is the best season of your life. I also want to remind you that as you go through your journey of self discovery, you're going to reach to a point where you're going to, again, I've shared before that you're going to be questioning things about your own life. You're going to be questioning tradition. You're going to be questioning the status quo. You're going to be questioning social construct and religious indoctrination. You may break with tradition in some areas of your life. You may challenge the status quo. You may defy social construct. When I talk about social construct, understand what that means. Whether it's tradition, religion, the status quo, or society. Look, social construct or the word construct, what that means is that a group of people got together and with concepts, with ideas, with perceptions about how to do certain things in society, and it's like they come to an agreement, and that is imposed as rule. It doesn't happen like by it's not like it's something that's inherently natural or objective. No, it's a construct. These are rules, uh thoughts, ideas, perception, perspective, views, opinions of people like you and me. See, once you understand that, then things becomes easier. It mitigates the burden of you making change in your own life in order to advance and to come into that place of your true authentic self, that place of authenticity. You start discovering the true meaning of things. And as you continue to question, there are a lot of traditional values that no longer serves us. I learned this week of this new tradition that people that are getting married, the tradition is you're getting married, and your father, if you're a female, the father walks the bride down the aisle and meets the groom and so forth. And even if you don't have a father, there's always a male. It's an uncle, a godfather, a brother, something. That is tradition. Today, I've learned that things have changed. Couples are now choosing, not everyone, obviously, choosing to walk themselves down the aisle, particularly couples that have lived together before they decide to get married. They're walking each other down the aisle as a form of, I am committing to you, and or I've got your back. We are in this together. It's a whole different mindset, and that is breaking with tradition. Now, that's not for everyone, but that is something that 5 years ago, perhaps even 10 years ago, we would have never thought of that, because tradition has dictated that the father of the bride walks her down and hands her over to the groom. Well, that is changing. And I think it's fascinating because even the vows, and I know for us, we didn't do the traditional vows for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and health, because you and I know that people don't keep those vows. Those vows, nobody keeps those vows. Now, if I can tell you how I respect and admire you, and how I am happy to do this life, to go through life, to experience this thing called life with you, that to me comes naturally, because then I'll be speaking from my heart. And sometimes things change as we evolve and grow and progress and things of that nature. But what I would share with my to be husband at the time we were getting married is something from my heart, other than for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, in till death do us part. That is no. A lot of couples are just staying away from that. Again, that is tradition. That is things that are tradition. The status quo is the same thing. There's certain things that are so set in stone, and in most cases they are cultural. things, societal and cultural, and then we get locked into that, and we get stuck. You lose your creativity because you don't think outside of the box, and you don't think that you can create something new, something eccentric, something original, something that is you, that is so you. One of the things that I learned when I was going through, and I still am going through that journey, but at the onset of my own journey of self-discovery, one of the things that I discovered, that I learned for myself, that I devised, that I created, is that the purpose of life is pleasure. And I say that a lot. And every time I say it, people they kind of get quiet, because when I say the purpose of life is pleasure, now I know what I mean. When I share that with you, is to give you food for thought. You decide what you mean by that. But in most cases, people think that I mean to go out and live a salacious, rambunctious life of, just freedom and liberty and all that. Even though we do embrace freedom and personal freedom and liberty, but that's not what I mean. For me, you know what it means when I say the purpose of life is pleasure. Understand this, because that is my mindset. That is my mindset that has become part of me. And as you live your life, in joy and contentment, and just happy and exhilarated, and just really enjoying the experience of every moment of your life, given whatever situation it is, your body, your actual body continues to release hormones. They're called, the happy hormones. But what these do is, these hormones, they continue to regenerate your cells. And, it's called, I think it's oxytocin and endorphins and dopamine, all of those hormones, as your emotions and your feelings, away from anger and depression, but they're exuberant and happy and joyous. And what those hormones are doing, they are regenerating the cells in your body. These cells are like anti-cancer cells, and cells that again, they are regenerative. They are anti-inflammatory. So what happens is that not only does it keeps your mind calm, at peace, but it also keeps you exhilarated and happy and healthy. So as I continue with that mindset, with those thoughts, that thought pattern, these hormones are being released into my system. They're being released into my system, dopamine and oxytocin and all of those, uh, serotonin, all of those hormones. So it's to my benefit. And again, that's me. I say the purpose of life is pleasure. Now you can come up with your own. When I say that, there's nothing that I'm selling. You can come up with your own. What is the purpose of your life? So when I think of my life, whatever it is that I'm doing right now, I am in estoy en mi salsa. That means that I'm in my sauce, because just here chatting with you, it makes me happy. I am happy right now. And in everything that I do, I try to keep that in mind, because I know the physical benefits of that piece of information. And this is based on studies. Studies have shown that, your feelings and your emotions have a lot to do. Just like when you have anger and depression, again, it goes in the reverse. And those are things that causes, uh, causes inflammatory disease in your body, in inflammation and just a slew of because of your emotions and your feelings and all that, it just works in the reverse. So for me, when I say the purpose of life is pleasure, I really mean that. I know what it means for me. And, of course, I've come to the point where, whatever people think, that's on them. They can think whatever they want, because that's another thing also. One of the things that you're going to have to come to reckon with is to know that people will always have an opinion of you. So when you come up with your concepts that works for you, don't be afraid to put it out there. Don't be afraid to be bold and bodacious and confident and assertive, to put it out there unapologetically. Don't apologize. When you come up with something, don't apologize for it. Just make sure it's you. Make sure it comes from you, and make sure it works for you. That's the whole thing. So going back to construct, when you think of religious construct, because religious doctrine is religious construct. It's a construct. These are, information gathered by a structure, society, whether it's scholars or people, educators, teachers, whatever. People gather information, and then they come up with things, ideas and opinions and concepts and perceptions as to how, and they agree upon it. And then it's imposed upon you and me, it's imposed upon us. And that information, that teaching is what shapes our identity. So we go through life, with a concept that's not even us. And I know for me, I broke with tradition, and of course, not all traditions. Certain things, if it works for me, then I'm good with that. But certain traditions, they don't work anymore. They don't suit me. They don't serve me anymore, and I just break with tradition. And then, the status quo, I challenge the status quo. Who's to say things are to be done this way or that way? No. You see what happened after during COVID, from working, going to an office every day. Now it's home office or working from home. And we find that people are just as effective, and in some cases, depending on what the nature of your work is, so in some cases it's even better. So that status quo, that has changed. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she said, well, her company now, they, 1 week they're at home, 1 week they go to the office, 1 week, and that works for them. But that has changed. That wasn't that way years back, before COVID, before 2020. Totally different. Social structure, years ago, and last week we talked about sex being a gift to enjoy and not a sin to confess. And the more I thought about it, and people really responded to that, because it seems like that's like a big deal in the Christian community, particularly, because that's like a big thing. But then when you think of it, it's all a construct. It is all a construct. It's a social. It's construct. And there was a time in ancient days where, again, it's always been a patriarchal society, and when woman's chastity was applauded. As a matter of fact, it was expected. In certain cultures, certain religion, when you're married, you're expected to be a virgin and so forth. And those that were not in the society, they were stigmatized and so forth. So we grow. So anyway, religion creates this construct um, against women. not men. It's interesting because not men, whether the man is a virgin or not, that's not questioned. It's always the woman. And because of that, and the teaching of the doctrine of religion that tells you about yourself, that you're bad, you're a sinner, you're no good. Even the good that you think you're doing, it says filthy rags, and all of that. All, so we look at ourselves as bad and nasty and good for nothing and worthless and so forth. And for some people, it's hard to get away from that notion. And if you do something that's against the teaching of the Bible, then you feel bad. You feel, because it comes shaded or packaged with guilt and shame and judgment upon self. You judge yourself. How? As no good, as bad, as a sinner against the teaching of the Bible. So it's hard to advance because you're thinking of yourself that way. And when it comes to your sexuality, understand this, my friend. First of all, you have to keep in mind that your sexuality is a personal and private matter. Once you get that in your mind, you're a step ahead. It's a person. That means, I'm talking to adults. That means you are 100% responsible for yourself. And your sexuality is part of your humanity. You don't make that up. That's who you are. We are sexual. We are emotional. We have feelings. We have, not only emotional feelings, but we have physical sensations in our body. You didn't make that up. You did not create you like that. As a matter of fact, you were not created. You were birthed. You were born. But you did not construct your parts that way. So how can you be responsible for when you have a reaction to those physical emotions? Why would you consider yourself bad or dirty or sinful? You are not responsible for that. Once you change your thinking and see it as something healthy, see it as, see sex as something healthy, healthy and enjoyable, something healthy and enjoyable. It's a gift for you to enjoy. Now, I'm not going to get into any doctrinal thing because I'm not a religious person. So I don't, the doctrine, the religious construct or doctrinal construct that are created by man is not something that I follow because, again, they're all religious construct. Understand, look it up. The definition of social construct. Construct. Look it up and you will see that they are men's thoughts. And if you your Bible, I don't, anyway, if you read your Bible, you'll see that based on the God that was created in that Bible, God doesn't conform to those thoughts. Because when his chosen people would go into battle with the opposing nations or the nations around them, he would say, take the loot, kill the men, kill the women, kill the babies, but the virgins, keep them for yourself. That's what he said. He said, bring them into your house and make them your concubines, your servants, your slaves, your wives, so you can bring them into your domain and you will make them. But these are only, and the reason it was only the virgins is because women that had already engaged in intercourse, chances are they could be carrying a child. And what the whole idea was for um, the nation that was attacked. They wanted to make sure that there were no remnants left of that nation, of those people, to grow up and then take revenge over God's chosen. So the women that were virgin, there was no issue there. But, in case they took all the women and some came pregnant, guess what? They would breed. If they were the Moabites, they would breed little Moabites men and, grow. They would, of course, have the history, and they would be a challenge to the chosen children. So the point is, God, the God of the Bible, according to this construct, says get rid of man, woman, child, suckling babies, everybody, except you keep the virgins. Imagine, this is God saying. I looked it up. As a matter of fact, in Numbers 31, the conqueror takes the virgins as wives, concubines, servants, and slaves. It says, now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourself every girl who has never slept with a man. That's God saying that. And you can take her. So when the Bible talks about chastity and abstinence and celibacy and all that, those are human, those are societal construct. They made it up. Because if that was a law imposed by God, and I know someplace else it says something about fornicators may not inherit the kingdom of you've got to come to your own conclusion and see how that affects your life. But God himself, he says, he said, kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man. Kill them. But save for yourself. Imagine that. They go in and they conquer a nation, and you have all these beautiful young women, and he says, no, keep them for yourself. Every girl who has never slept with a man. That's deep. When I was religious years ago, I never read and I read the Bible cover to cover, but I never read it that way because that was just at the time I never really exercised my critical thinking skills, because once you are indoctrinated, it's like you go into a trance. It's like being brainwashed. So you don't really question things. You just go and then you get into the emotions of, excuse me, there's the music and the praise and the worship and so forth. And all you hear, excuse me. So for that, all you hear is God is good all the time. And again, these are things that we conceptualize. So once you understand that this whole thing, when you talk about yourself and when you're worried about, being human in yourself. I mean, even God was human. When he said, I am a jealous God. That is a human emotion. And God is supposed to be spiritual. Well, define what's spiritual, because he said, I am a jealous God. So try to unpack all those things. But let's get back to your sexuality, because it seems like that's a big hurdle. A big hurdle. If that were the case, so serious to you impose judgment upon yourself and criticism and blame and shame and all that. If that were the case, why, how does this work that God says, take the virgins for yourself and you will use them as concubines? Some may be wives, some are servants, and some are slaves. And obviously, if he says that some are slaves, then we already know that God condones slave. That's a whole different topic. But think of it. God is saying you can take them. You can sleep with them. There's you're not going to marry a whole bunch of women. And if you do, again, that's another topic. But this is God, your God of the Bible. That's, again, religious indoctrination is really unpacking all the things that's in the Bible, not just what you've been taught, because what you have been taught, what I was taught, is that God is good all the time. And anything good that happened to me, I would ascribe it to God. I would, give credit to God, the God of the Bible, the imaginary God that I had in my mind. And if it was something bad, then I would blame the devil. And ever since, I, walked away from this whole doctrine, there's no devil, there is no God. No God to take credit and no devil to blame. And that's it. That's it for me. Now you may have a whole different understanding, and you may, this religious indoctrination is not for you to get away from your God. That is your choice. Once you come to an understanding, you would know what works for you. You would know what works for you. For me, I was radical. And I have no regrets. It's been 15 years since we have been walking in a place where we take responsibility for ourselves and have been living a life that is formidable. That's, marvelous, wonderful. you have to figure, and that's the thing. You have to figure out what works for you. Because if there can be a group of men, because it's again, patriarchal society, and if they can come up, with these thoughts or these social, religious, traditional construct for the society, and they can agree upon that, what would it be if you were present among them? What would your contribution be? See, in my case, as I shared before, that I came up with, and I've got a whole thing in different areas that I have changed in my life, but the whole idea, because when you say what is the purpose of life, people have a whole bunch of things, to serve others, to lead others to Christ, to do this, to do that, and whatever. Well, I do that too. Right now, I am sharing with you. I do that too. But when I think of the purpose of my life, it's pleasure. The purpose of my life is pleasure. I came up with that. Did I need a group of men to sit with to come up with that? No, because that's mine, and it works for me. It works for me, and you don't need any kind of affirmation. Once it's, again, I always say your freedom ends when it imposes, when it infringes on the freedom of another. But as long as you do whatever it is that you desire to do, whatever it is that you desire to do, if it doesn't infringe on the freedom of another, you are free to come up with that. You are free to come up with that. One of the things that you're going to learn as you step into this place of self-discovery is that you are going to take full responsibility for your decisions, for your actions, for your choices, for your thoughts. You will take full responsibility for that. And it's a wonderful place to be because it is a place of freedom. It is a place of freedom. You know, you're free to be you, to be yourself. And the more you experience that, the more you test yourself, the more you allow yourself to step outside of the box, the more you allow yourself to be creative and innovative and original in your own right, you will see more opportunities and ideas and experiences and situations. You will be inviting all those into your life. But the main thing that I must stress over and over and over again is the construct. Everything, there is an anatomy of belief. And I was reading about that sometime. The anatomy of belief explores how beliefs are formed, maintained, and influence behavior. It encompasses several key components, and it talks about the cognitive component, the emotions, the social influence, the experiences, identity, the reinforcement, and the change. And what that is really, it talks about how your belief, how it's formed, how it's maintained, how it influences your behavior. And, believe, it says it talks about the components, and then it says change, from your beliefs. Beliefs can evolve over time through new experiences, information, and critical reflection. Cognitive dissonance may occur when new information conflicts with existing belief. Cognitive dissonance is when something doesn't make sense, but because it is a belief system, you want to stick with it. It's hard to break away because it's something that's been embedded in you. And in order to maintain that, you develop cognitive dissonance. You will not let go. It contradicts what you know is true, but because of the belief system, it's on the inside of you. It's hard to break away from it. Why? Because just like people will say, well, that's the way I grew up. That's all I know. And it says, I read again, beliefs can evolve over time through new experiences, information, and critical reflection, critical thinking skills. And then you start reflecting, but it has to be really, you have to be honest, intellectually honest with yourself as you reflect on truth, fact of the matter, not the belief, but the fact of the matter. What is it that you know, not what you believe? And it says cognitive dissonance may occur when new information conflicts with existing belief. And that's what you said, that you came to a place where you want to come into your true authenticity, but your religious belief conflicts with that. And it says prompting reevaluation and potential change. When you find the new information that you are garnering now, when you find that it conflicts with existing beliefs, it says here, prompting reevaluation and potential change. So what's happening? It is prompting you to reevaluate. Wait a minute. Yeah, you're right. This doesn't make any sense at all. It's right here in the Bible. God commands them and he tells them, you take the you take the virgins and you take them for yourself. But then religious construct in my society, in my culture, says you can't have sex before you get married, and all of that. Do you see how conflicting that is? Do you see how conflicting that is? In the meantime, you are built with a with a machine. You are built so human that you have feelings and emotions and desires and wants and needs. But then again, you think of it as bad, as nasty, as dirty, as sinful, instead of seeing it as something, wow, the ability, the opportunity you have to enjoy your humanity, your sexuality. We demonize sex in our society. But you see, you can come away with your own thoughts how you are going to handle that. After all, you are an adult. You are an adult. You work things. You come up with your own unapologetically. Unapologetically. I can't go into every detail. If you are single, I know when I was single, the first thing I did, was to make sure that I took care of whatever it is I needed to do not to become pregnant, because that's not something that was just not in my plans. So you do what you need to do. But aside from that, you can work all those details out. The point that I'm trying to drive here is, when it comes to change, it has to do with your belief. And all belief, as I said, how belief, the anatomy of belief, has to do with how it's formed, how it's maintained, and how it influences your behavior. And these components, cognition, emotion, social influence, experience, identity, reinforcement, change, and so forth. And where it talks about identity, it says here, beliefs are often tied to personal and group identity. People may adopt beliefs that align with their self-concept or as a group. Or then you you know may realize, wait a minute, that's not me. I don't really like that. I don't really fit in to that community or to that group of people. I'm not taking on that identity. But then it's a construct, it's a belief. So if you're part of that community, it just happens by association. It happens by association. And you need to determine, as you go through, remember, as you are going through these changes that's conflicting with an existing beliefs, you have to come to a place, you have to come to a decision to where you say, wait a minute, it's either I continue with this belief system, or I exercise critical reflection, critical thinking skills. I exercise my critical reflection and start sorting it out. Start sorting it out to see what is the truth that serves you. Because remember, social construct, religious construct, traditional construct is not based on an inherent natural experience, like objective. It's not objective. These people, they come together and they agree on a certain thing, on a certain rule, on a certain law. And they call it moral law. And then you are subject to that. And if you break that law, then you're subject to judgment and criticism and shame and blame and all of that. And the worst thing you want to do is to self-judge. You don't want to judge yourself in that way negatively, self-judge and blame and shame, and you just go through all these kind of negative emotion towards yourself. That's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to do that to yourself. That's not the way it works, because as you continue in this journey, on this journey, you're gonna, and as you continue to make decisions for yourself, you're gonna see how you're gonna start, and then again implement these decisions. You're gonna start feeling a lot more confident and a lot more assertive. Why? Because these are things that you have created. You are creating your own construct for yourself. That's what I did. And somebody said to me, "Oh, when I," they said, "Oh gosh, I wish I was as confident as you." But it's not even. I mean, that comes with when you're you know when you it's it really the same mental capacity that you use to acquire, maintain, form, and keep those beliefs system. The belief, the same mental capacity that you had to to receive, to take, to accept, and along the years to maintain the belief that influence your behavior, your performance, your attitude, is the same ability you have to make changes. It says here that once you get information that conflicts with your existing belief, you have to make sure that cognitive dissonance does not kick in, because that is what happens to a lot of people. Uh, because it is so strong. When you believe something for your entire life, comes a time that, when you're faced with something else, it's just hard to make that change, because you're like, wait a minute, this is all I know. But then understand that the same way these laws and rules were agreed upon by men and implemented into the social structure, which create our culture, which we abide by because, again, they're a social construct. And the same way those men, again, it's a patriarchal society. It still is today. We are changing that slowly. And in most cases, they implement laws having no idea. Imagine this. When I read earlier how God said to his chosen people, and how he says to um, kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourself every girl who has never slept. That's in Numbers 31. I think it's Numbers 31, 17, something like that. Yeah, 17 through 18. So what happens to the man? Is there any kind of punishment, or is there any kind of thing that happens to the men that have slept with women? Of course, it tells them to, but the whole idea for killing the man is because they were the enemies, or they could come back and challenge the chosen ones and so forth. But throughout the whole Bible, there's no repercussion. There's nothing about men as far as any kind of punishment or any kind of stigma if you realize that a man has slept with it. There's no stigma. It's all on the woman. That's why you have to change your thinking and think good thoughts about yourself. Think good thoughts about about your humanity. Think good thoughts about your sexuality. Know that it's not bad and it's not dirty. And whatever decision you make with your own sexuality, know that it is a personal and a private matter. And once you begin to live, this again, this journey of self discovery is not like sitting in a classroom learning stuff. You're living life now. And whatever it is that you learn, whatever it is you learn from different sources, if it resonates with you, you continue to live. Travel. As a matter of fact, my husband and I were talking about this morning how we were talking. There was something on TV, and we were a show, and they were talking about dating after 50 or 60, something like that, 50, 60, 70, 80, or when should you stop dating, and or never. And it was, should you stop dating after 60, 70, 80, or never stop dating? And so we were saying how people, they conform to their environment. In our countries, in certain countries, like in Costa Rica, people, they don't leave, they stay. In most cases, they stay right there. They grow up, and then they stay within the compound of the family. And in the US as well, you were born in this community, in this city, in this state, and you stay there. You marry there and you stay there. Why? Because you want to be close to family, and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in most cases, you stay there and you don't grow. Your horizon don't expand. Why? Because you are living in the culture that you have learned all your life. But comes a point for those of you that are more adventurous, where you just you pack your bags and you go. You either move to another state, another city, another country, or even if you stay there. There was this. I was talking to this girl the other day, and we're talking about tradition and so forth. And she said, because I shared how the younger generation, Gen Z, and even millennials, they have a different mindset. Back then it was like, you go to college, you get a degree, you find a job with a company, you buy a house, you have a white picket fence, and you retire and so forth. And then she said to me, she said, no, 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 no. She said, for us, it's not that way. For us is you graduate from high school, you get a government job, you work there for 40 years, you retire, and then you just wait to die. Something like that. There's nothing about traveling or knowing the world, nothing. No, she says that's the way they were taught. And that is kind of cultural. And then this other person shared how there's this family with this kid. This kid is graduated from high school or college. I think it's more like a 2-year college or something like that. And decided after 2-year college, decided he didn't want to go back. And it's her stepson. And the stepson had an inheritance from his grandparents. So he had a boatload of money. And the stepson, who is probably about 21 years old, decided that he wants to travel the world. And the parents are having a fit because it doesn't fit with, it's not aligned with the thought process, with the pattern, with the tradition of society. And they're having a real conflict within, because this young man of 21 years old, he decided that he wants to travel. He wants to go to Europe. He wants to do this. He wants to touch every single continent, or travel to 195 different countries, which is what's there. And I say, bravo, bravo for that kid. See, but if your mind is stuck on the status quo, if your mind is stuck on tradition, if your mind is stuck on social construct, you will not understand the dynamics of this new way of thinking. The kid is breaking with tradition. And as far as I understand, it seems like he is good with technology and good with people and good with marketing and ideas and all that. But that's not what he wants. He doesn't want to be seated in an office, using his creative skills. No, he wants to travel the world and meet people and just have a good time and discover things and new cultures and new societal customs and habits and things of that nature. And again, if you are not a progressive parent, if you are not of a progressive mindset, that would be hard for you to understand. Because why? You're going to worry that something could happen to him. You are going to be, worried that, okay, because one of the things that was mentioned within that family that she shared, what happens when he's out of money? What happens when he's out of money? I don't know how they work that out, but the kid is 21. And as far as I understand, he's got like a great inheritance from his grandparents. He may learn a lesson or two when he runs out of money, but in my mind, you've got to be supportive to someone like that. You've got to be supportive because that's where his strength is. And that's what he desires. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. That's what he wants. And he's breaking from tradition. He's breaking out of the status quo. Because his siblings, they did go on to college and got a degree, and they are working in jobs that they don't like, and perhaps a little depressed and whatever. But this kid, he's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to be seated behind the desk, and I can eat whatever, a bowl of something, and be satisfied as long as I can get on a plane and travel from this place to the next. That is fantastic. I applaud anyone, whether you're millennial or Gen Z. I applaud any person of that generation, or even you know people that are older. If that's what you desire, then do it and don't wait. That's why I say this is the best season of your life, because it is a season where you can make decisions. You have choices. There's so many things that you can do. And if you have to travel, there's so many jobs that are remote. I have a friend that she's a psychologist, she's a doctor, and she was just in Geneva last month, and she's back here, and then she's going to Amsterdam, I think it is. Just all over the place. And she's working. She came back here. We got together. We did some things, and she'll be gone. And then she said, "When you come back, we need to get together again," and so forth. And it's so you've got to change, because comes a point, like it says here, when it conflicts, you're gonna have conflicts with existing beliefs. Belief is a powerful set of emotions, mindset. It's powerful. It'll keep you bound. When we left church, we were involved in a belief system, and my husband, it was more me. Even though I didn't grow up religious, but I'm the one that was, when he met me, I was into religion. And then after he said, "That's it, I'm done. I'm done." And I'm so glad he did, because I'm so glad I was smart enough to, well, he didn't put any pressure on me, but to do a quick check, and after a couple months or so, I was ready, and we took a sabbatical. 2009, never went back. And at the same time, I know people that chose differently. I know people that they said no. As a matter of fact, I was on this podcast the other day. I wasn't on it. I was listening to this podcast. And this person, they were talking about some things, and it had to do with religious deconstruction. And this person came on, and her name was, like, let's say, Jane Christ. And I'm thinking that is her last name. Well, by the time she got off she called in and was sharing and so forth, but she was very, she was very dogmatic about things. And the host shared with the audience that is, she divorced her husband to marry Christ. That is a true story. He said she divorced her husband to marry Christ, and she changed her name. Her name is now Jane. It's not Jane. I don't remember what her name was. I was just mesmerized by that whole story. But her name is now Jane Christ. Jane Christ. That is her name. Jane Christ. She divorced her husband because she is so rooted into this belief system that she didn't want to be married anymore. I don't know if the husband wasn't as committed as she was. I don't know the details of it. The point is, she divorced him. And her name now is Jane Christ. I thought her last name was Christ or Christ or something like that. But it's Christ. It's Jane Christ. So, there's some people that choose different. There's some people that say, well, my husband, if he doesn't, I know situations like that. The husband wasn't religious enough, and the wives just, they just got separated, then divorced. Not me. I stuck with my husband, and we've been good. We're good for 15 years. Well, we've been married, longer than that, but it's 15 years since we left the church. So anyway, the thing is this. Know, my friend, that construct, religious construct, tradition, status quo, social construct, these are all things created, made up, agreed by men. These are concepts. These are perceptions. These are things that people, they make it up and they come up with that. And the same way I created my own definition of the purpose of life, that the purpose of life is pleasure, then you can create your own in any area of your life and start seeing yourself in a positive way, in a good light. Start embracing your humanity. Start embracing your sexuality and know that it's something beautiful. It is something beautiful. It is something clean. It is something enjoyable. It is something to behold. Because you are not responsible for your sexuality. It happened upon you. It happened upon you. You didn't acquire that. You were born that way. And as you go through this journey of self-discovery to discover your true, authentic self, embrace all of who you are. And don't let any belief system define you. Again, this show is for you that you know who you are, that are conflicted in this journey of self-discovery. In the meantime, my friend, I'm going to leave you with that so that you can go through critical reflection of who you are and the beliefs that you hold and make decisions that serves you now. In the meantime, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we have a date right here. Every Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, the Cynthia Linox Show. And if you wish to drop me a note, go to info@thecynthialinoxshow.com. and you can write me a note. I am also a certified life coach. If you need someone to personally walk beside you, walk alongside you, and help you in your journey, you can write to info@thecynthialinoxshow.com and I will meet you there. I offer a 30-minute complimentary chat just to make sure that you're okay, I'm okay, and that we're a good match, and we take it from there. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend that's coming up, whatever it is that you choose to do, and I will see you next week, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here. Okay? Ciao, amigos. Hasta la próxima semana. Au revoir. Bye.